I apologize for that delay, everybody. It looks like we have enough folks here for a quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 2:07. Today's meeting is open to the public. Citizens may comment on the agendized items only. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes, just to make sure we have received no public comment. Is that correct? No public comment. Okay. I'm going to do a quick roll call for those on the LTAC committee. Megan Goodrich.
I'm here.
Okay. Ken Wang. Pamela Estes. Larry Munns.
I am here.
Christine Kellen. Margaret Livermore.
Here.
Okay, and I, Brian Stuckey, am here as well, so that makes enough here for a quorum. I'm going to do allow a quick introduction for those that have applied. If you'd like to say anything that time, you certainly can. Unless the committee decides otherwise, I don't believe there'll be any discussion as we're going over the scoring sheets from those that have applied, unless the council decides to change that on the moment. So, Steve Schwabe, with the windmill project, do you have anything you want to say, or a wave? Or are you going to keep chewing?
Oh, I will say hi. Thank you very much for having this meeting. I look forward to the results.
All right. Larry, of course, you're on the committee, but you're also an applicant. Anything that you want to add?
No, I think what's there is sufficient. Thanks.
Okay. Margaret? Same?
No comment.
Okay. That's great. Cynthia Mason?
Can I unmute? There we go. Just want to say hello and thank you. I'm here representing the Oak Harbor Music Festival's application for the 2023 grant cycle. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. Jay Cochran?
Hi, thank you for having me and considering our application for North Whidbey Pool Park and Recreation District.
Okay. Sandra Place? I know you're with the city, but also have some grants in.
Yes, thank you. I'm just excited to be here to submit, or for the two submissions that I did on behalf of the city for the wayfinding signs and the electric charging stations, and I'm excited to be part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hi, this is Kathy Lofton-Day. I'm representing the Whidbey Gardening Workshop, part of the Island County Master Gardener Foundation. And I, too, am eager to hear your considerations and look forward to the results.
Thanks. Nice to have you here. Anyone I missed? No? Okay, then we'll go over to our discussion topics where we have our scoring sheet summary. Chaz, do you want to bring that up?
Okay, here we go. So here are our 2023 LTAC grant application summaries. Listed are the applicants and the dollars requested. For grant year 2023, just as a review, council approved $500,000. Island County Joint Tourism has that perpetual contract with the city for $20,000 each year. That left $480,000 available for the remaining 2023 grant funding. We do have 4 multi-year applications, Chamber of Commerce for operations for $130,000, PBY Memorial Operations for $33,600, an event for Hydros for Heroes for $21,000, and the event for Tour de Whidbey for $5,000. These multi-year contracts would expire after 3 years. We also have 11 single-year applicants, Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce for marketing at $65,000, Oak Harbor Music Festival for $48,000, North Whidbey Pool Park and Rec District for $37,384.42, City of Oak Harbor Electric Vehicle Charger for $30,000, Rotary Club of Oak Harbor for $25,000, Oak Harbor Main Street for $16,250, City of Oak Harbor Downtown Marketing Signage for $14,700, Island County Master Gardener for $4,700, Whidbey Island Gem Club for $3,295, and Wildcat Sailing for $1,200. Our total grant requests are $465,129.42, with leaving a remainder of $14,870.58. All the LTAC members received single-year scoring forms and the multi-year scoring forms, so we'll just briefly go over those scoring criteria. Number one, we've got the promotion and marketing plan of the project, specifying how the proposed marketing and promotion plan will reach visitors 50-plus miles away or coming from another state or country, point value 20. Potential of the project to increase overnight stays in Oak Harbor, Washington, point value 20. Explain how that funding, the project will provide an economic investment, 5 points, and general benefit to the city, 5 points. Description of the project activity, including a timeline of the event with all important dates clearly marked, 10 points. Project focused on the shoulder season, October through May. Grading is not all or none, 15 points. Explanation and attachments of previous year post-project requirement attendance data provided, known as our Exhibit B. For new applicants, how will the applicant obtain such information? And that is 10 points. Applicant's history of organizational and project success, not necessarily LTAC funded events, 5 points. New or continuing project and demonstration of project funding necessity, 10 points for a total of 100, and that is our single year scoring criteria. Moving on to our multi-year scoring criteria. The first is describe whether the applicant will match funds if awarded any lodging tax funds with a point value of 10. Explain how the operation of your business has the potential to increase overnight stays in Oak Harbor, Washington, for 20 points. Describe how the applicant plans to advertise, publicize, and otherwise distribute information for the purpose of attracting and welcoming tourists to Oak Harbor, Washington, from 50 miles or more, other state or country, for overnight stays, for 20 points. Demonstrate how the strategy focuses on the shoulder season, October through May, 10 points. Illustrate how the applicant will measure the outcomes of the project. For example, the city asks for attendance data at the end of the project. How will the applicant obtain such information? 20 points. Demonstrate the applicant's history of promotional and marketing success for 20 points, and that's a total of 100. And here is our compilation of the LTAC member scores that were transferred onto this one workbook. This is our summary of total points assigned per member per event. And we have a column for total points per event, percentage of total funds requested, and the average scores. And once you start your deliberations, I'm actually going to bring up the actual workbook. We won't, of course, be working from this slide. And then, of course, this is what we're here to do today. We're going to have the committee deliberate, determine the consensus dollar amounts for awards, vote on the consensus dollar amounts for awards, and then make that final recommendation for funding to council. And then I just want to thank you for this successful LTAC year. But now I'm going to bring up the workbook, and back to you, Councilman.
All right, if you want to pull that workbook up. So essentially, we need to determine how much to award, and that by award, of course, we are making a recommendation to the city council. It looks like you have some options there. Is that kind of a suggested idea? Now, we don't have to go by this, but of course, it is nice to have a little method to the madness. Do you want to kind of give a little mentality behind these options and see if that's what we want to go with, or?
Yes, so we've got the average score there, and that, of course, is indicated by the scores received by each of the LTAC members for each event. So column M in purple, the average score is displayed there for you. The next column is options. You've got 4, and the LTAC members wanted something just a simpler form, and so I put this together, and if it works for you, great. If not, then you also have, you can, as a committee, decide what your dollar amounts that you want to assign to each of these events, of course. But the column N is your average score of 90% or above, and that would equal 100% funding. Average score of 80% or above would equal 90% funding. Average score of 70% or above would be 80% funding. And then an average score of 60% or above is 70% funding, and anything less than 60, the committee would need to decide. But at this point, everyone was at least above 60. So I can place an amount there for you to consider. But that's the formula behind it.
Thank you. And I mean, I'm sure those, and this is just for those on the LTAC committee, we probably all have some thoughts. I mean, there are many ways we could do this. We could go with a suggested, we could do all or nothing above a certain percentage. Another consideration too, multi-year grants, just by going with the options, I believe the dollar amount would be 190 per year. That's including the 20,000. Someone correct my math if I'm wrong. So keep in mind, with us getting an average of 300 to 350 a year, that would absorb quite a bit in years to come. So keep in mind with multi-year grants. Turning it over to the other members of the LTAC committee, though, what are your thoughts of the option proposed? Do you have any other thoughts of how else we would like to discuss awarding these grants? I open up to the floor here.
I have a comment. I think since the grant amounts requested are less than the amounts that we have available, and I believe all these events and grants, they wouldn't have applied if they didn't think that they had a good event or a good project. To me, I would fund everybody at what they asked.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from any of the other members of the committee?
I can't see where I raised my hand, so I guess I just talk. Is that right?
Go ahead.
Okay. And committee, thank you very much. I tend to agree with Margaret with one caution, however, which was sort of highlighted on that slide, is I'm a little bit cautious with the multi-year funding. With funding what has been asked for would set us up in the following 2 years. This year is fine, but you are then defining a fixed amount, $189,000, I think is what was basically asked for. And if next year the amount stipulated by council, as it has been in the past several years, is closer to 300,000 instead of 500,000, you're essentially drastically cutting all the single year providers out because the priority has gone to the multi-year. That's a concern. Unfortunately, I don't have a suggestion for that other than I don't know, perhaps making everyone aware that I think, this is my personal opinion, this may be a one-year deal. We may not have these types funding in the future. I would be tickled if we did, because that means a whole lot of people are staying in our hotels and we're generating a lot of revenue. But I think that should be a consideration for the committee.
Megan, I have some thoughts too, but I want to give you an option. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I was just wondering, because the multi-years are the repeated, the tour to Whitby, and was it the marathon?
No.
No, Hydros for Heroes, Tour de Whitby.
Hydros, that was it. That was my question, because I didn't have the paperwork in front of me. That was my question. That's all.
So what we can do, because Larry, I sympathize 100% with your mentality, and I share that with the multi-years. In the interest of kind of having some order to the madness here, we can always just, for right now, take all the single years and just say, yes, we're going to do all the single years, and then we can kind of hash out the multi-year. How do you folks feel about that?
I agree with that.
I agree with that also.
I have one more question then, Brian.
Please.
I don't know, this is, I guess, a legal question, is this, if we fund whatever we decide to fund for multi-year, is that a given? Or does every year we take the fact that multi-year has been funded and we have an opportunity to modify the actual amount of the funding? I know that kind of jerks around the organizations because they may be planning budgeting on what we sort of, I don't know if that's a promise or if that's what we suggested we were going to give in the future. Again, I don't know the legalities of that.
So Larry, we actually have them sign a multi-year contract, and in that multi-year contract, it'll state that dollar amount for each year.
Okay.
So we are committing to that dollar amount each year.
This is Margaret. I have one question. Since I'm on my laptop and these figures are not very big, is there a column that shows what they received in 2022, the multi-year ones?
Yes. Column C,
Columns,
right here.
column C. Okay. Oh, gotcha. Thank you. I need bigger glasses or something.
So it sounds like, once we figure out the multi-years, we can, I guess, take it to a vote to make it more official. But at this point, we're okay with the single years, and we just want to concentrate on the multi-years? Is that the essence? That's the feeling that I feel like we're getting here. Yeah.
Do you need a vote from us?
I think we'll do a vote when we have it all figured out, so we can just do one vote.
Okay.
Unless if you guys prefer us to do a vote on the single years, and that way it's behind us, we can do that too.
Can I make another comment? This is
Please.
an editorial comment, and I'm sorry that I end up making all my personal comments
No,
arise to the board. I totally understand what Margaret said and what the board agrees to, that there is money in this to fund everyone. Going through these stipulations, these applications that were listed, there are 3 or 4 of these here that I kind of question the validity of the fact that they're going to raise the amount of heads to beds. And in any other year other than this, I think they would have been dropped from the table. With that said, that is not a recommendation for me to say, just that and some of these are brand new events that are just asking for the funding. And quite frankly, some of them are 1-year deals. They're just asking for this year, then presumably they'll be off and on their way. But again, setting ourselves up as a, well, you did it in the past sort of regime, I would not like to have other applicants come in previous years and use, well, we did it in the past for the anticipation of funding. Enough said. I feel better. Thank you.
And I do agree with you from just speaking for myself. There are a few of them that I would say, is this in the spirit of increasing tourism? It's not just heads and beds, but certainly that's the focus. So I do agree with you on that. That being said, there's 4 of us here, and if that's the route we want to do to fund all the single years, then that's of course we'll do. But I do understand your caution as well. So with that being said, do we want to take a vote on the single years and then go to the multi-years, so that's kind of behind us? Or do we want to not take a vote and just take a vote of all of them once we've deliberated on the multi-years?
If you would like, I would make a motion to accept the amounts requested for all the single year grants for year 2023.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Larry, seconded by Margaret. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand virtually.
Aye.
Aye, okay. That passes. So going on to the multi-years, and one note with the multi-years, I said there was 190,000 if we were awarding it based on the options. Can we get a total on what, if we fully funded the multi-years, because I don't want to, make it so we can't award single years in the future. Can someone give me a total? If we did the 100%.
189.6 is what it says on our spreadsheet.
189,600.
189,600, and does that include the 20,000 as well, or does that?
No, that would not include the 20,000.
So 200 base,
Yeah.
if we're rounding 200,000. And keeping in mind.
110. 109. 209.
209.
Oh, boy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind, and Larry hit the nail on the head here, definitely, that in talking with our finance director, it sounds like 300 to 350,000 is how much, based on the economy, we bring in. So we are not guaranteed to have this large amount in future years. I wouldn't count on this. It's not sustainable. If we're only making 300 to 350,000, we can't release 500,000 each year. So let's just keep in mind when we're discussing this, if we just did even, let's go worst case scenario, 300, over 2/3 of that's already eaten up if we do the full multi-year grant. So with that in mind, what thoughts do we have on the multi-years? We can take them one by one if we want. We can take them as a whole. But what thoughts do we have on the multi-year grants?
I would like to discuss one by one if I could.
Okay, let's just discuss one by one. I think that just to confirm, the 20,000, is that in perpetuity, or was that, okay, so the 20,000 with Island County is in perpetuity, so that one is out of our mind. So let's go ahead and start with Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce for 130,000, which is by far the largest of the three, of the four. I mean, it's more than all of them combined. So let's go ahead and take that first. Any thoughts on the 130,000 for the Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce operations?
Is that, as I say, I can't read these. Is that 150 or 130?
130, 130 is the
Okay.
amount requested, and 130 is the amount that has been awarded in the past.
In the past, usually the chamber, if you add their two grants together, they're usually getting at least half of the monies that are available. So they're already getting down here 60, wherever it is, what number their line there is, Oak Harbor Chamber Marketing. They're already getting 65, and we only awarded them 37.5 last year. Is that what I'm reading? For this single grant, right? Number
Yes.
8. So the top one is for their facility, and salaries is, from what I remember from the grant, reading the grant, is that correct? If anybody remembers?
Yeah, it would include her labor. The one.
Okay, so that's payroll and her building and the building and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we awarded them a multi-year at a lower amount, there's nothing stopping them from doing a single year in the future, but I assume it would have to be for a different project. I mean, let's say we said 100,000 a year as opposed to 130. Could they then do a single year later, if times were tough, to add 30 more to operations, or does it not work? Can they not have two simultaneous grants for the same thing?
I think they can.
It becomes I think it becomes an accounting issue on how they determine how they're going to show the expense of that money, would be my guess. I don't know that's a fact, but.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they could always apply for two grants next year, one for facilities and one for marketing, if they didn't get enough through the multi-year grant. And, as Larry said, we don't really want to, we don't have a whole ton of money out there for multi-years and then leave the single year grants out. For next year, if we don't get enough, then, we eliminate a lot of grants. But there are, thinking of next year, there are a couple of ones from the city that, and from the pool that won't be applied for again, because they're 1 year, they're single things, like the EV stuff and the signs and the slide. I mean, they're not going to have those repeated next year, so those won't be in the request for next year. I mean, when you think about totals. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we can just talk about each one and go back and add numbers. What do you think, Larry? I don't know.
So I just did a little, back of the envelope thing here, which is very basic, and that's akin to doing math in public, and I apologize. But as I recall past years, it was likely that our overall grant distribution was in the range of $300,000. $300,000. And I also seem to recall that a normal year's funding of 1 year ask, single year projects, was in the area of 120. I think last year's was actually 123,000.
Correct.
Which satisfied people that were requesting, not at the levels that they requested, however, but at a level that they all have presumably executed. So with a real quick back of the pencil thing, I did the 300,000 and took out an average year, single year distribution of 123, and I came out with $177,000. So if I were looking to decrement the multi-year people, rather than just across the board giving them everything they want, if it were reduced to something that then would have been nominal from years past, I think we're looking in the $180,000 instead of the $206,000, which $209,000, which includes the 20,000 Island County thing.
So
Just a thought.
A question came up. Thank you for that. A question came up regarding if we can just make the multi-year grants single. So they did apply for multi-year grants, and the LTAC committee can decide to fund at whatever level they decide. So the LTAC committee could decide just to fund 1 year if they so choose.
Oh, really? Well, I have questions about some of the other multi-years, not the chamber particularly.
We can bounce around.
some
So
of
go
the-
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the others, like Hydros for Heroes, they got 11,000 last year, but they want 21,000 for 3 years. That's $63,000. I mean, that's a huge amount more money than they've ever asked for in the past.
Right, which is a 24% increase over past years.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go for that.
Oh, I take that back. That's a 90% increase from past
exactly,
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it possible that if they've, and I'm just going based on the last 2 years that I've seen of LTAC, this being new to me, is it possible that they've seen that it's already been a percentage of the amount, so a larger amount is being requested, hoping that, I mean, I assume and I hope that they're requesting for what they actually want and need. But is there any chance of them requesting more, thinking they're going to get less, and that's the amount they actually are going for? I mean, I hate to look at it that way, but.
Well, Brian, I can answer the question on, I did a column across the bottom, which gave me a percentage increase from past year for all the entities. We've already taken care of the single year guys, but the two on the outside, the chamber and the Tour de France, Whidbey, whatever, basically are status quo. That's what they've executed last year. The two in the middle were a 25% increase and a 90% increase, largely because, if I recall, both of those entities requested more, but we didn't have more, so we funded them at less. And I would guess that they are now back to their funding full detail. So their large increase shows up as the fact that they're back to funding what they thought they would have got, but they didn't get it last year.
And I mean, for me personally, I mean, I don't feel comfortable granting the full amount on a multi-year basis. But that being said, we have to have a rationale that applies to all of them so we can justify it if we were not to grant the full amount, if that makes sense. So, I mean, I do see options on there, which were the options that Chaz put together. Let me get the total on that, because I remember, Larry, what was that number you said that was the amount that multi-years have been in the past? I thought it was 170 or 180.
It was using the formula, what I recall, last year's single years were $123,000. And that was out of the entire pot of $300,000. And I'm a little fuzzy on whether the 20 Island County was included or not included. I can't say that, but so if you take the 123 out of 300, you come up with 177. And I just did the math on that. 177 out of what is requested, 189 and change, is 85% roughly. So if you took absolutely nothing about any of the organizations and just took out their numbers and just went across what they requested and decremented everyone to 85%, that probably is not fair. It's just a number that would come out. You'd end up with about the range of what we had afforded in previous years. And you would give them the comfort level of knowing for 3 years they will have that amount. The idea of funding 1 year, again, I'm not talking to any of the recipients, but I would think they would be more pleased to know that they will get this amount for 3 years than to get the full amount this year and have no idea what they're going to get next year. That's just a comment. I don't know that's true.
That's if we were to say they only had 1 year grants.
Yes.
Because if we vote on this, they're going to get this for 3 years in a row, which may take, which we fully funded all 4 of those. That might be all the money we have next year. Nobody will get no single years will get anything.
Exactly.
Which is not fair at all.
Chaz, what are those numbers you just pulled up? Was that at 85% or?
Yes.
Keep in mind, there is the 20,000 on top of this.
For next year.
Right, for next year, yeah. So looking at 85% of the requested amount, what are our thoughts on that, looking at those numbers? And I understand, Margaret, it may be a little hard for you to see those numbers, so I can read them off if you need me to.
I'm doing my best.
Sorry. You'll notice I have my glasses on, and I don't normally wear glasses that often.
I see. It's 110. Was that 28, 17, and 4 something?
Again, I tend to be a numbers guy, and by looking at what is there, it seems reasonable because it sort of falls in line with all the options that Chaz gave us in the first place, which were unique and different. That's not the way, well, it may or may not be the way we had looked at things in the past, but it's in the ballpark. Again, that being said, that completely takes the entity out of the equation. So are we saying that, the chamber should be more worthy of a higher percentage than the hydros, or, we're not even having that discussion unless we go into this and go beyond.
Well, and that gets a little tricky too, because then if we open up that door, then we could go back and say, hey, the same thing would apply to the single years as well, where we didn't discuss merits of those individual grants by themselves either.
I have a question.
I guess I have a question, and this may be opening it to the floor. I don't know who is on the floor, but since we are in our deliberations, and I don't know if it's worthy for people to ask, does a entity feel more comfortable to know that number in column R that they're going to get for 3 straight years, is that better than getting their full amount this year for 1 year?
And I will note there are I don't believe, any of the multi-year grant applicants on this meeting. They're all single-year grant applicants that are on the meeting.
Okay.
So that might not be.
And I had a question. I don't really feel that an event should be a multi-year. Who knows if it's going to go belly up, and then you've signed something for 3 years that you're giving them money for 3 years? I mean, as hydros, the chance, there is a chance that could happen. I've never seen, I don't think we've seen events show up in a multi-year. Have we, Larry? I don't remember. Or
no, the only multi-year I think we had last year were the chamber and the museum, because they are essentially brick and mortar places that operate all year for forever. So the 2 others, I could be wrong, that the 2 others that popped up this year are doing that because it was eligible. They could.
Yeah, it's easier than applying for a grant for every year for 3 years.
Real quick, our finance director is going to give some. I see him chomping at the bit over there. So you want to pitch in there?
Even if we sign an agreement for 3 years, the recipients do have to submit justification, receipts, backup to claim the funds. So if an event does go belly up, that would probably prove difficult for them to provide backup. And of course, we would know that they went belly up, and if they did try to claim the funds, we would be asking a whole lot of questions.
Yeah, it's a reimbursable grant.
It's a reimbursable grant, yes.
Right, that's true. That's true.
this is strange because we're really asking a question for next year. And if we knew what was going to happen next year, none of us would have these jobs. We'd be out doing something else because we would be really, really rich. So, but again, I think we've all created a, smacked the hornet's nest a little bit to deal with something a year away, when in fact we're fully capable of doing everything for everyone right now. And I have a little that's kind of hard to justify on, I don't know. I don't know. I'm open to everybody.
Yeah, looking at the 85, it is somewhat in line, at 85% is somewhat in line with what?
Oh, PBYs.
Oh, I apologize. Will, you're with the PBY Museum. Maybe you have some insight.
Yeah, and I feel a little awkward being the only applicant here, but to go back to Larry's comment about how do we feel with lower funding, but guaranteed over a period of time, at least from our perspective, that is better than, let's say, doing 1 year. And the thing that's available to all of the brick and mortar and the others, if we're funded lower for 3 years, if we have a specific project, which in fact, if we were depending solely on these numbers, we would probably cut out an off-island event that we would do. But we could come in a future year with a separate 1 year request to support a single event. So, but the short answer is we would be more comfortable knowing that we have the 3 year funding, even if it is at a lower level.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And going back to what we discussed earlier, again, these same applicants can always put a grant in the future for a single year. So even though we gave them a little bit less, they do have that option in the future. So for me personally, I do kind of like the lower amount, the 85%. I like that, Larry, and I appreciate you doing your envelope math. It does kind of help give a little bit of justification for it, because I want to be able to justify this to any of these applicants of why they got a lower amount. And if we were to say it's because that puts it more in line with what was given in years past, that does give a little justification for it.
Sorry, that's my phone's ringing. I don't know how to check my phone. There. If you give me just a minute or two, I'm going to rationalize and to substantiate what Brian just said, that he likes that 85%. I'm going to go down those top four. 110,000 for the chamber. That's 20,000 less than we've given in past years. However, we just funded twice as much as we've ever funded for their marketing grant. And I know that may be apples and oranges, but as an entity, I would feel comfortable with that. The second one down is the PBY, and we just heard Will say that he's happy with what we just showed there, which is about what he got in past years anyway. The third one down is hydros, again, which is another 50 per last year. They got 11,000. So this is 50% more than they were funded last year. Not as much as they had asked for, but again, in a multi-year deal. The Tour de Whidbey, slightly lower than what they had requested. We had been maintaining them at what they had been requested in previous years, I recall. However, if you would look back at their funding stream and cash flows, they generate, like $60,000, which goes to donations and operations of the entity. So this amount is not money that is required for the event. It's money that is hopefully accumulated so that they can later distribute it. So with that said, I'm perfectly in line with that 85% numbers.
I agree, Margaret.
Larry, that almost sounded like a motion.
I can, sure. I can do that. Let me think just a second. I would move that we accept the multi-year grants at the 85% level for the following 3 years. Is that about what I said? And then let David and his guys do the math.
I second.
I agree.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Just the four of us. I don't anticipate any more discussion. So all those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. So with that in mind, it looks like we have our breakdown there. And unless there's anything else, I'm kind of looking over at Chaz. Are we missing anything that we need to go over?
That's it.
Okay. Well, any other
Can I
comments?
add another housekeeping question?
Please.
Since initially, the initial grant amounts that were requested was below the 500,000 that the council supported, this amount, the 15% taken off the top for the multi-year guys, I'm assuming that will go back in the amount that we were not going to spend in the first place, and that'll just go back in the LTAC pot.
Correct.
Yep.
That was a maximum amount that they referred to the LTAC committee.
That's
So
correct.
what amount, so what is our total now? I can't read it, so sorry.
Our total amount funded or the total amount that would be left in the,
No, the total amount that we're funding now.
It's going to be a total of $436,689.42, and it's going to leave $43,311 of the original 480. So we do have some.
I think that's good, because then that will if we bring in 300 next year, that'll make it almost 350, and you take the multi-years off the top of that, what does that leave? So if we have like 350 for next year and the multi-years are how much total?
177-ish. I don't know what the multi-years are.
When we added that up, let's see.
Okay.
If you add those three up.
we're doing a little math here.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're doing it with a computer, not on the back of an envelope. I like it.
Oh, it's not working like I want it to. Okay, so we got, what is my total here? 161.6, okay.
161.
Well, but some of that's from the first year, so we'd have to take that out and just give you the remaining.
Okay, well, if 350 was
See if we
what
collect,
if 350 is what the council approves for next year, 350, we're going to take the 20 out of that. So let me do that too. Let me add a line. And another line. So of course that's going to be 330. And then we've got 161.6 as the total of our multi-years. What did I do here? Let's do that.
so you got 171,000 then. 171,000.
Yeah, so if we have 350 total approved by council for LTAC, 20 of it is the perpetual Island County Joint Tourism, leaving us 330 for grants to be determined by LTAC. 161.6 is our multi-year, that's going to leave us 168.4 for new grants.
So that's not too bad.
Not too
Right.
bad.
Hey, Chaz, can we ask you one more thing since you're doing all that?
Sure.
Can you zero the one-time expenses for this year, for assuming that they will not be one-time expenses for next year? That would be the slide, that would be the EV thing, that would be the signage. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, I'm not looking for them, but basically we could likely assume that everybody other than those people could be back next year for another bite of the apple, as they might say.
Okay, so go back to, like, for instance, chamber marketing will be back for a single year?
No. Yeah.
I'm gonna
No, just take out 30,000 from the city, for the EV and, their signage and then the slide. How much do those add up to?
Yeah. The slides 37,380, the EVs is 30,000, and the signs downtown
Was 14.7.
are 14,700.
7.
Okay, that's not working very well.
That's 14, that's 11. That's 82,000 or something.
My thing is
Is that
not
right?
trying to click into the. Okay, we've got. I'm sorry, guys, I'm clicking into the cell and it's not trying to do it for me. All right. Oh, my goodness.
You do need
it's
an
weird.
envelope.
Yeah.
It's like it's not trying to work with me here. Okay. Very odd.
Okay, it comes out to be 82,080.
To take out.
Yeah, so
So this
next-
year's requested was 275 and change. If you take 82 out, we're down to like 190-ish next year. And
So what'd you say the request was?
275, 529.
Minus 8, what did I say, 880 or something? Yeah, that's
Yeah, so
194. That's not bad. And if we have 168, then that, gives us a little bit of, whatever.
We've always, well, frequently we work at the 50, 60% level. This would be closer to the 80% level. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, did that answer everyone's questions before we close it out here? I want to make sure we don't cut anyone off, so.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, this will go to City Council, which will to approve. And I thank everyone for your time and joining us here, and enjoy the rest of your day. We are adjourned.
And Chaz, can you forward this Excel